right, getting things going here. Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It is a Tuesday as we get ready for the next round of winter weather, and we are seeing some rather odd things and a few other interesting things with respect to the forecast going forward. And somebody just mentioning Robert Russo, 40 years ago, buried in 54 inches of snow. Yes, the blizzard of 78. Today, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, really, the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, the anniversary of one of the biggest snowstorms certainly I've ever experienced. And for many people, it is something that has yet to be surpassed. But when we get a little bit of downtime, we'll talk a bit more about that historical event. And let's get right to what's going on right now. A couple of weird things with respect to what the Weather Service did, and this is because we have different offices and sort of overlapping zones as far as watches and warnings are concerned. I'm going to try to bring this up a bit, make this a little bigger so you can see what the problem is. And I mean, it's just a matter of, I guess, semantics really with respect to whether it's a watch or a warning or an advisory, or whether it's a warning or an advisory. But you know, you've got much of the Northeast under winter storm warnings up now. Northern Pennsylvania, including the Northeast, Northwest New Jersey, the northwest corner of New Jersey, Sussex, and Passaic County. And in the Hudson Valley, you have Orange and Putnam counties. Now, that is part of the jurisdiction of Upton, which is on Long Island and covers New York City, much but not all of northern New Jersey, mostly northeastern New Jersey. Mount Holly covers northwest New Jersey and all of eastern PA and the rest of New Jersey itself, and even into northern Delaware. Albany controls Dutchess and Ulster counties and Columbia counties and the counties north, and also does Litchfield County in Connecticut. So you've got this winter storm warning up for Putnam County, which is south of Dutchess County. Dutchess County is under winter weather advisory, and then it goes back up to the warning as you go further north. And Boston, by the way, covers the rest of Connecticut to the east. The southern part of Connecticut is Upton's jurisdiction. So I don't know if there was some kind of battle that went on today in terms of why Albany opted for the advisory for Dutchess County and Columbia County. I could see why they did it in terms of what's being shown, and the Weather Service opted for the warning for the counties that lie to the south. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you know, then again, this is the world we live in. Winter storm warnings up for the rest of upstate New York, most of central and northern New England. You've got advisories on the southern flank of this through the rest of Connecticut and southern Massachusetts. We've also got some winter storm warnings up for southern PA in a small area and northwestern Maryland, southern Ohio, northeastern Kentucky, and this may be more due to ice than anything else, and then winter weather advisories that extend back west-southwestward across southern half of Ohio, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, southern Missouri, and on up and through eastern Oklahoma and northern Arkansas. Also, a peppering of flood watches up for central Mississippi, northeastern Louisiana, southeastern Arkansas, and much of south central and southeastern Kentucky also under a flood watch, and that flood watch extends into West Virginia. Not to leave out the West, we have winter storm watches up for a good portion of the state of Montana and a small area in northeastern Wyoming and northwestern South Dakota, with the next weather system that's coming in. So it's a pretty busy time here across the U.S., and we'll show you how things are evolving on the radar as of 6 o'clock Eastern Time. This is a live, real-time view here during the live stream anyway. If you're watching this later on, this is as of 6:05 p.m., and there are two areas of moisture. You've got this Gulf moisture with rain and even a few heavier downpours and one or two thunderstorms in the mix across East Texas in through the lower Mississippi Valley and through the Gulf states, and that's moving northeastward. And then there's a bit of a gap, and on the northern flank you've got some snow that's on up in through parts of northeastern Kansas, southeastern Nebraska, moving into southern Iowa, northern Missouri. That is streaming to the east. All of this is due to low pressure that is going to be coming out of the Gulf states and moving out of the Tennessee Valley and working its way northeastward. The problem with this is the fact that we don't have any kind of blocking in the atmosphere. So this surface low is not really going to redevelop as they often do. They only get so far north sometimes, and then they throw their energy to a coastal low. And this is how the coast winds up getting pinned down with frozen for a longer period of time. That is not going to be the case this time around. The surface low is actually going to run just inland of the coast, across northern Virginia, over southeastern Pennsylvania, and perhaps right over or just south of or just barely north of New York City and Long Island. So if you're just north and west of that low track, you're going to get into some snow, and you're going to have to deal with some freezing rain. So this is really the toughest part of this, is trying to figure out how far north the 32-degree line gets, and how many hours of freezing rain will occur, especially for some inland areas north and west of New York City, because that could make for some pretty significant icing in some places. It's certainly coming down at a time during the busier parts of the day. Snow's going to be breaking out during the morning rush hour. The freezing rain part is going to be occurring through much of the late morning to mid-afternoon. How far north does that rain get? And then when this is all said and done, we'll probably see any standing moisture freeze up, because by Thursday morning, when this precip is long gone, we're going to see temperatures drop down into the 20s in many areas. So there'll be some icing also to deal with Thursday morning. But you can see what I did here with this. I basically have a coating to an inch across north central Maryland, south central and southeastern Pennsylvania, into central New Jersey, south of the Turnpike, and then on up into Long Island. All of what goes on in Long Island, whether it's a coating to an inch or maybe it's a quick burst of a couple of inches in some places, they're going to wind up getting all of that washed away anyway. 1 to 3 inches figure from, say, along or just south of Route 78, north and west, on up toward the northeastern counties of New Jersey, and then you go up into northwest New Jersey, northern Warren, Sussex, western Passaic County, even westernmost Warren counties, looking at 3 to 6 inches in that band, runs through northeastern Pennsylvania on south and west of there. 6 to 8 from north central to northeastern Pennsylvania, and that would include Williamsport and Scranton, Allentown in the 1 to 3, Harrisburg in the 1 to 3, Chambersburg in the 1 to 3, Philadelphia in the coating to an inch, as is Baltimore. And actually, I have the coating to an inch going north and west of Baltimore and Washington, D.C. So I actually have that pinned up maybe a shade too far to the north, but that's kind of how I'm seeing it. Even if you wind up with a coating to an inch in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., it does get washed away. And the northern fringe here, that 1 to 3 across Westchester, Rockland, northeastern New Jersey, southern Connecticut, and southern Rhode Island. And then you get into the 3 to 6 in northwest New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and in Connecticut along and north of Route 84. And then further northwest of there, as you head up north into upstate New York, around Binghamton, Kingston, into northeastern Pennsylvania, north of Scranton, or along or very close to Scranton there north, I'm going for a band of 6 to 8. So I've got Williamsport in that 6 to 8 band here that extends northeastward. And that band, it gradually expands as we move on up through upstate New York and into New England. Here is just to show you the Weather Service's map. And I have the map here for New Jersey, and you can see 4 to 6 for Sussex, but you see how quickly it tails off to the 2 to 3, 1 to 2, less than an inch all the way down the coast. By the way, you don't see anything, just as a reminder, it's not that it's not going to be any snow in northeast New Jersey or the Hudson Valley in Connecticut and Long Island. It's just that it's not under the jurisdiction of Mount Holly, so they're only showing you the areas that their forecast they're responsible for. Mount Pocono, along and north of Route 80, basically I think this is where this is going to be fairly sizable in terms of snow before there's any switch over to freezing rain. Now, I know, remember yesterday, I forgot who it was, but you did ask about wanting to see Baltimore, so I'll pull that up first since it's already here. And this is the Weather Service forecast to Baltimore, Washington, all less than an inch. Actually, it gives Washington 0. It puts Baltimore in under an inch, Frederick under an inch, Martinsburg under an inch, and then you start to get into some 1 to 2 inch amounts around Hagerstown, Cumberland. I think that's Kaiser is how it's pronounced. But much of northwestern Virginia into northeastern West Virginia gets under an inch of snow. And I'll switch this off now. We'll go into New York. And let me just bring up New York's map. Okay, X. And you can see what they're doing. So basically less than an inch for Long Island, but 1 to 2 inches in around New York City, 2 to 3 for White Plains, 3 to 4 for Danbury, 4 to 6 for Carmel, New City, and West Milford, and 6 to 8 up at Montgomery. You can see how tight this all is. And the snow is going to come fast. It's going to come, basically in a quick couple of hours before the warm air comes in. If we had even just a little bit of blocking of any kind, we probably would be able to extend the snow here for a couple of hours. And just by extending it a couple of hours, we would wind up with far more. But I can show you the problem here with the teleconnections with respect to this, and we'll look at the NAO, and I'll come back to this a little bit later as well. But look at that NAO, which is already strongly positive and goes absolutely off the wall, this steady uphill climb up till February 11th or 12th. That's when it hits its peak. But it is all going on its way to off-the-wall positive, so it's about as far away from blocking as you can get. But after that, it does crash down to the neutral line around February 20th, and the Pacific North America Index, the ridge in the west, off-the-wall negative. Now, after seeing forecasts of good going off the wall positive, you see how models change from run to run, and that how changes the teleconnections. But it does spike it back to neutral around February 20th, and the EPO also negative through all of this, which probably prevents it from getting off the wall warm here in the east once we're done with this system. But then it does trend up toward the neutral line. So again, I'm going to just call attention to that February 20th, 21st, let's go even make it the 19th, 20th, 21st time frame as a time frame that we should watch for some kind of storm development someplace. That's about as much as I can really say about that at this point. But we'll come back to the long range in just a little bit, because I want to spend some time here on the short range, and we'll bring up a couple of the short range models. I'm kind of liking the look of the RGEM tonight, and I'll tell you why as I bring it up. Sometimes with these warm fronts, you can get, fooled in both directions. And I think that this is going to be one of these systems that winds up perhaps, we wind up getting a bit more where the models are underperforming reality with respect to the front end snow and the freezing rain. And I think the RGEM might have a better idea of how this is going to play out in the profile for snow. So this is at 6 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Snowing throughout much of PA, snowing hard throughout much of western PA. You can see in the purple and pink shading, that is sleet and freezing rain into northeastern Virginia. Snow about to start in New York City, which it does by 7 a.m. and then expands eastward. Now we're at 10 a.m. So whatever snow comes down in this area, you're going to put it down quick. And some places will put it down very hard. Notice the darker blues, the RGEM picking up through central Pennsylvania. So that's probably heavy snow. But by 11 a.m. noon, it's already have changed over to rain over Long Island and through much of central New Jersey, snow in North Jersey and through Connecticut, heavier snows in the Hudson Valley and in through northeastern Pennsylvania. And then you get this band of sleet and freezing rain here. This is now at 3 in the afternoon. So where is the wall going to be in terms of the northern extent of the 32-degree temperature line? And that, I think, is going to be really key to what happens tomorrow. We saw on Sunday that models overwarmed, and I think this could be an instance where that is the case again. Also, by the way, look where the surface low is. The surface low is in northeastern West Virginia. If we had some blocking, high pressure would be pressing down from the north. It would probably force that surface low to redevelop off the Delaware coast and keeping things much colder across the coastal northeast. But this is what happens when you don't have it. The surface low runs up the Appalachians and just has no reason to redevelop. There's nothing forcing it to throw it, cause pressure falls to the east. There's no cold air pressing down from the north. Everything is moving along. So look at that, where the surface low winds up moving across southeastern Pennsylvania through central New Jersey. I mean, it looks like it's taking the trip right along 195 and then goes just over Long Island into southern Connecticut and right over Boston. So that's why the coastal big cities, Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, Hartford to Boston, north and west of there, we'll see a change over to rain before this all ends. And then once the system goes out, you start to get drier air coming in, and everything ends tomorrow evening, and we see colder air coming in as well. By the time we get to Thursday morning, temperatures are going to be important because you're going to have a lot of standing moisture around, and you'll notice that by Thursday morning, the RGEM has it pretty cold, has everybody pretty much in the 20s, and we go below freezing in many locations. I want to go back to that 32-degree line. Let's follow that along, and you can actually see the warm advection in play here with what's happening along the coast. But here we are at 10 o'clock Wednesday morning. You notice how the cold air gets pinned back down, back through Pennsylvania into the mountains. That's typical of some cold air trying to dam southward. That 32-degree line gets to about southern Dutchess County, northwestern Connecticut, and then it starts to drop southeastward. Of course, by this time, precipitation is done, but we go below freezing with all this moisture around. We're going to see some icing problems come Thursday morning. So that's a pretty decent shot of cold air that's coming in behind this system. We've seen that happen with these lows recently. Every time one goes by, we get a shot of cold air that comes in behind it, this one being no different. Here's the RGEM's snowfall, and this is something that I think, kind of makes sense to me. I want to back up, though, before we go to the final total. I want to back it up and bring it to, this is noon tomorrow. And you'll notice that the RGEM, that lighter shade of bluish white, that is 2 to 3 inches of snow. And, at this point, we're starting to see that rain-snow line pushing northward. Notice the bigger amounts of 6-inch plus confined to central PA, northeastern PA getting into it a little bit. And then, of course, that expands. This area stays mostly snow, and you start to get into some heavier amounts. Here at this point, you start going north of 84, it's sleet and freezing rain. So I don't know how much of this is snow and how much is not, but the front end could wind up with a wider area of 1 to 3 inch, 2 to 4 inch snows as that warm air comes up. So we'll just have to watch the radar tomorrow morning. I think there's enough in terms of dynamics that there could be a fairly solid front end thump of a few inches. You don't have the time to put down much more than that. And then it goes over to sleet and freezing rain, and then ultimately to rain. But it's a very interesting setup with regards to the warm air that's coming up. And here we are at the 5,000 foot level, and I'm just backing it up to the beginning here. Actually, I'm going back a little bit too far. This is yesterday's, but there's the cold air that came in. And there's actually another shot of cold air with this high that's building in tonight across upstate New York and New England. But that high just goes out, and you start to get the warm air There's the 0 line, is that southern edge of that lightish blue across Maryland and into southern New Jersey. This is at, now we're at 7 a.m., 8, 9, 10, 11. So, you know, by 9 or 10 o'clock, if this is right, you would have already changed over to sleet at New York City. So it's whatever you put down in those 2 or 3 hours, and then it's that 0 goes up north of 84 before it starts to pivot around, and then drops southeastward as the cold air returns. So you can see how the atmosphere is responding at the higher levels. And by the way, back through Pennsylvania, that 0 at 8:50, you know, makes it very close to Williamsport and actually gets north of Scranton. So you might see it go over to a mix in those two areas for a brief time before it comes back as snow. And it might mean a situation where the ground temperatures never get above 32, just that the temperatures aloft do warm up enough that you do get into some mixing. In fact, if we look at the temperature profile, and I'll run that through again, you can see during the day tomorrow, this is at 1 o'clock, Scranton is still below freezing. Then it kind of just pops to about the freezing mark. Williamsport stays below, so does Western PA, and then of course after that everything just collapses. So I think that the RGM has a good idea here in terms of what to expect. Here's the GFS. We'll put the snowfall map of the GFS up from today. Again, how much of this is snow and how much of this is freezing rain remains to be seen. So this is as of 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. A good chunk of this area is already turned over. So you might want to take these numbers and cut them back a little bit. We can look at the positive snowfall map. If I can find it, where is it? Total snowfall, 24 hours. Here's the positive. Okay, so this is supposed to account for sleet, and the amounts here are in the 4 to 6 inch range. So we'll see tomorrow if this works out right with 4 inches for parts of northwest New Jersey. See, this would argue for that kind of a front end thump, and it also would argue for a sharp cutoff as you go south. Once you go down to south of Route 78 or south and east of the Turnpike in New Jersey, you're not going to see much of anything. And this would also argue for an inch or less across southeastern PA. Some larger amounts are tailing back, by the way, not to leave out you folks in central and southern Ohio getting about 2 to 4 inches of snow on the GFS and into southwestern Pennsylvania. And then ultimately, of course, this all does quite well for upstate New York and on up through interior New England, matching where the winter storm watches, and I'm sorry, where the winter storm warnings are up. So while we have the GFS, let's go jump to the long range, because once this system is done, I think, you know, weather's going to be a little bit less eventful here in the eastern part of the United States, but I kind of want to look at what the upper air is doing here. And we'll start with we're at tomorrow. So here's our trough in the east. Pulls out. The next one is not going to have cold air, as much cold air to work with. So that one for this weekend could be mostly rain. And you notice on the upper air, by the way, going through the weekend, you don't even see that much of a 500 trough that's swinging around. It's kind of, you know, So not looking like anything too serious is going to happen with respect to rain over the weekend. Going now into days 9 and 10, you see a stronger trough swinging around from the vortex in Canada, and you know the GFS keeps wanting to. Yes, it does develop a bit of a blocky signature here with this upper high over Greenland, but it keeps wanting to migrate the upper low and the vortex to the west. I think that, you know, one of the things that Judah Cohen pointed out in his piece yesterday, I think I did put the link up to it, is that in the two cases where, you know, everybody's talking about this split in the stratosphere and the vortex in the stratosphere, and it matches up very well to the January of 1985 split that led to a huge Arctic outbreak in the plains, Midwest, and parts of the East. But it also compares to the February in 1991, where it basically just reinforced the pattern we were in. So, you know, it could bring the trough back to the east or bring the trough back to the west. I don't know. The GFS seems to be insistent on doing this. It's been bringing this trough to the west for the last number of days in the long range. And yet when we look at the ensembles are not quite as bearish from that respect. It has more of a trough in the east as we go. Well, this is the new ensembles. It's not out. This is at least through day 9. Why don't we go back, before I put my foot in my mouth, let me just go back and look at the prior run, because I did not get a chance to look at it today. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of trying to migrate the ensembles back to the west, but not in a big way. I think the jury is probably going to be still out with regards to where this is going to go beyond the 10-day period. I don't think we're going to see too much happening over the next 10 days, barring a last-minute surprise, and there could always be last-minute surprises. We've seen that happen often enough during the winter. And where did I put myself? Did I lose myself again? There I go. I'm hiding behind the radar. Okay, so let me bring this up, and we're going to talk to you guys. And I just want to say, by the way, give me 1 second. I'm going to run I got to run a quick commercial break here, so don't go away and come back if you see an ad. All right. In the meantime, I just want to tell you guys, let me just bring it up, and if it will just let me, I'm trying to bring up something. Okay, here we go. So let me just copy that. Okay, so here's the thing, folks. In case, I'm just putting it out there, please don't feel obligated at all, but if you ever think that you'd like to, if you want to find a way to support my channel and support my website and get me a cigar, one way you can do it where it doesn't cost you a dime, an extra dime, is if you shop through my Amazon link. You don't have to buy anything that's on there, but if you search through there and you wind up buying something, Amazon will buy me a cigar, and that would be perfectly fine, and I would appreciate it. So I'm just putting that out there for any of you who might be interested. Okay, so let me just say hi to everybody, all right? And that includes Joshua Pan, and of course Garo Vestas and Howard Vanderhoff. I saw you there too. YouTuber Robert Hurley. Let's see. How can we tell which direction the prevailing winds are going? Are going, looking at the models like the GFS at 500 millibars and ground level? Okay, well, just remember that winds blow counterclockwise around lows and clockwise around highs. And if you want on the 500 millibar map, there's actually one of the other options makes it a little easier. And let me see if I can, it's not available for every single region, but I will see if I can pull this up. But one of the options here, let's see if that's the one. Okay, so this is the one. And if you look, I'll bring it a little tighter so that this way you can see it better. But if you look carefully here on this map, here's your wind barbs. Okay, so if you know how to read the wind barbs of the direction, it'll tell you not only the direction of the wind on the 500 millibar maps, but also the speed. So you could use this, and these are available, I believe, also for the 850 and the 700, and they prove to be rather useful if sometimes if you're trying to figure out if a trough is digging, you want to look at the wind speed on the west side of the trough. If it's greater than the wind speed on the east side of the trough, that's telling you that short wave that's coming down is digging into the flow, and that can often be a signs of a strengthening system down the road. Robert Hurley go to eyes to remove scar tissue that form from all the retina reattachment insertion. Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I hope everything goes well with you, Robert Hurley. Timothy Veltman, feels like one of those easy boom, bust and boom storms. Someone is going to far exceed and someone is going to be way below. Absolutely. That is a perfect description of what this setup is, Timothy. This is the kind of setup where somebody is going to do way more than what the model shows, and at the same time, somebody is going to get burned and do way less. It's the nature of this type of system, where you have all this warm air piling up the eastern seaboard. You don't really have any kind of, it's not like you're dealing with a deepening storm and a lot of upper air support. It's just a lot of warm air overrunning cold air, and no blocking to hold that cold air in and to keep the precipitation more snow than anything else. But that is an absolutely perfect description. DC getting dry slotted again. It's not even particularly cold. Yeah, that's correct. You are getting dry slotted. Look where the low is tracking. It's going into northeastern West Virginia, Joshua Pan. That's way too far west. I mean, you really would have needed that low to come across southern Virginia and off the Delaware coast. But again, no, that positive NAO is killing us with respect to that. Let's see. Your school district was the only one that didn't delay. Well, so you got your full day of school. The taxpayers got their money's worth then. Joshua Pan. Total snowfall maps only include ice pellets and not freezing rain or freezing drizzle. Yes, that's correct. They only the maps themselves reflect the sleet. But I've seen it in instances, it's building up. If you loop those snow maps, they're actually increasing accumulations on some of them in places where it's already long gone to freezing rain and rain. So it's really deceptive to look at those. If you see a 6 or 7 inch amount in some places, I don't think, in areas as you go into the south closer to the coast, that may not be right. Some of that's going to be compromised by sleet and freezing rain. I don't know how much of the balance is between the two in terms of how much is going to fall tomorrow. But the bottom line is that the snowfall maps may be too high in some areas. And it leads to Timothy's point about the fact that this is a boom, bust and boom type of system. For some, it's going to be it's going to be too low, and in some places, it's going to be too high. I'm just trying to run this down. NAM 3 drive-bys. I didn't even look at the NAM 3 today, late this afternoon. I do have the HRRR. I'm just going to take a quick glance at that. And this only goes out to, it still has it snowing over parts of Long Island and New York City at 11 a.m. So it's a little bit longer. And it's already put down several inches in some places in northwest New Jersey and northeastern Pennsylvania, with even an inch or so in southern Connecticut, but barely a coating for Long Island, at least from what I can see here on the latest HRRR model. Right, Tam Lewis, we need blocking and a negative NAO, and we're not going to have either. We're not going to have that until at the earliest February 19th or 20th, and all the indices are going to be coming to the neutral line from their given peaks and valleys. So that might be a place, a time, February, say 19th, 20th, 21st, somewhere in there. That might be a time for a storm development someplace. Even though models are not showing it, I think that might be something to pay attention to. Tom Adams, Boston's in a funny place. You're going to lose it there and go to rain. So I don't know how much you're going to get before it changes over, but I don't know about 4.5. That might be pushing it for Boston. North and west of Boston, go up into New Hampshire and so on. Yeah, those areas are going to do well with 6+, but there's going to be a sharp cutoff someplace. And yes, Howard, going to look for that right around the 19th, 20th. That it's been doing that the last few days. Now that it's gone back to this negative P&A in the west and this ridiculously positive NAO, in the North Atlantic. It's just astounding to me how, there's just been an absolute blocking has been just beyond non-existent during the winter months through much of the last 5 years or so, 5 winters, and I don't know whether that's going to change. Another weather warning for snow and ice for Always Smiling in Dublin, Ireland. I hope it melts before you have to hit the road. It's been a pretty active pattern. I don't have any time today to go through Europe and Canada, but I will do so for tomorrow. And of course, Always Smiling, if we get into that negative NAO, if that split in the vortex winds up, if the split in the vortex winds up causing blocking, that may extend your winter. Why, oh why, oh why? Some saying winter is over for I-95. Yes, those are the same people that were probably saying that winter was over before it began. Michael Groom, when someone says that, do me a favor, seriously. When someone says that, I'm not sure where you're if it's on Facebook or whatever, ask them what their meteorological reasoning is behind that. That they know what the weather pattern is going to be over the next 8 weeks for every single day. I would be curious as to get the answer to that question, because there's you can give me a meteorological reason, I can accept it. If you can even give me a climatological reason, which you can't, I would accept that too. But for most people, it's just, I think it's more an expression of frustration for snow lovers who just kind of arbitrarily say things with regards to what they think is going to happen, where there's no meteorological basis. So if they wind up being right, it really is only because of the fact they're acting like broken clocks and they're going to be right twice a day. Okay, so just pass that along in case anybody asks you what my opinion is of their particular forecast. I just don't, I just get frustrated because I know after watching this for so many decades, 40 years of watching this and seeing so many surprises happen, and many people just seem to think that they have, even they seem to have this really just perplexing view to me that winter somehow means that it should snow every single waking minute from November 1st to May 1st. And it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't even work that way in places like upstate New York and central and northern New England and the snow belts. You wind up with periods where the weather, the patterns break down and change, and it turns warmer, and maybe it doesn't snow for a few weeks. Yes, I did. Shelly Man Studios News 8. I assume you were referring to WVUE in New Orleans. I certainly did. That was back in 1983 to 1986. I worked with Bob Breck, who I know has retired. I haven't talked to Bob in a while, but I did speak to him right before he retired, and I hope he's doing well. Last I checked, he was. WVUE in New Orleans. If that's where you're referring to, I did work there, and New Orleans is a wonderful place. 2011-2012 front-loaded early spring. No, that was 10-11, Howard. 11-12 was the El Nino year. Okay, I think it was 10-11 that was front-end loaded, and then by the time we got into February, it shut off. But you know what? When it shut off in that year, as I remembered it, the pattern for December to January was pretty rock solid, consistent. But then in February, when it shut off, it was very obvious that it was shutting off and going to shut off for a long time. So for that matter, it shut off for the rest of the winter. But I don't know that. Excuse me. I don't know that that's this case this time around. And hey, look, it may wind up that the trough goes out to the west. If it does, after this whole the stratospheric vortex split takes place, if that trough does wind up going out to the west, then perhaps this winter would have seen its better days, and that we are going to see not much going on through the rest of February and through March, through the first part of March at least. But we'll have to wait to see if it sets up that way. I'm not necessarily convinced that it will. K-Kins 100, was I on radio in New Jersey? Absolutely. New Jersey 101.5. I did weekends on 101.5 with Alan Casper during the week, and I used to fill in for Alan for the better part of, I think it was almost 15 years. I lost track at one point, but I think it was for about 15 years that was the case. And I had a lot of fun doing 101.5. It was a good station to work for. Nothing but good memories for both WVUE in New Orleans and for New Jersey 101.5. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up at this point. I got some stuff I got to do at the top of the hour, so thank you very much for being here. Let me just remind you that I will be on Facebook tonight at 9:15 with my colleague Joe Rayo for the Joe and Joe Show, as we call it, or the Two Joes, and we'll go through this all over again with respect to what we think will happen for Wednesday. Also, do check out my Facebook page. You can link to my Facebook or website or Twitter or Google Plus from my YouTube channel page. There are links right at the top on the banner, and you can go from there. And do join me on Facebook. If you're new to my YouTube channel, thank you for being here, and don't forget to subscribe and check your notification button so that you get notified when the live streams happen, which means at least once a day. And again, for those of you who would like to, if you shop on Amazon, go ahead. You can shop through my link. Doesn't cost you a dime. Just search for whatever you need to search for, and Amazon will kick me back a cigar at no cost to you, and that would be great. And it helps me support my way as I try to figure out where I'm going to go with all this in the next coming weeks, coming months, and God willing, coming years. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow. And don't forget the Joe and Joe Show, 9:15 tonight on Facebook.